Apprendre le français, c'est facile au début. Vous savez dire oui, merci, bonsoir, les premières règles de grammaire. Vous progressez vite, c'est bien. Mais après, c'est le plateau. Vous tournez en rond, tout devient difficile et vous n'arrivez toujours pas à discuter normalement avec des Français ou même regarder un film sans sous-titres. C'est frustrant, c'est normal, ça arrive à tout le monde. Et bonne nouvelle, vous pouvez vous en sortir. Allez, c'est parti. When learning French, frustration is part of the experience. Is the language confusing? Yes. But deep down, is it illogical? Also, yes. Maybe you feel like the grammar is too strange. Maybe you think that it's weird that we say une voiture but un autobus. Or you don't understand why we say il n'est pas là and not il n'est pas ici. Well, in any case, you are right. You're right to be confused, you're allowed to feel frustrated, you're not stupid, and you're not bad at learning French or even bad at French. Okay, but what happened exactly? Well, you fell into the French trap. It's not specific to French, but it's a real part of your journey. When you start learning, you can progress very quickly. The words feel fresh, you start with easy sentences, and your program only gives you the easiest grammar rules. Like the conjugation of chanter, to sing, in the present, for instance. Yes, you do need to take a moment to learn it perfectly, but you still have all the early motivation. And you might even know half of it already from your high school days. And after that, a ton of verbs open up. Marcher, for to walk, parler, for to talk, acheter, to buy. But at some point, you will read something like je vais au marché. I'm going to the market. Je vais au marché. That's the verb aller, to go, but why doesn't it follow the same rules as marcher? Yes, that's an exception. Its conjugation is something else entirely. And that's how advanced French gets you. At first, when you find something weird like je vais, you kind of hope that it's just another simple rule you're going to learn soon. But no. For each case, like conjugation or using pronouns or using adjectives in the plural, there are several rules that you need to learn. And for each rule, there are exceptions. And an exception to the exception, of course, because it's French. And at some point, it just becomes too much. You only have so much space in your mind to remember abstract facts, like how we say 60, 70 and 80, or the difference between un manche long and une manche longue. And you know what? Actually, no. All of this is a distraction. All these things are a problem, yes, and they're confusing, but it's not the real problem. The real problem is that French people talk too fast.
C'est ça le vrai problème.
You see, what's really frustrating isn't that you have to learn one more exception. No, it's that even after you spend a lot of time trying to remember the rules of la liaison, for example, you realize that you can't speak with French people. Now, that is demoralizing. And it's the same in their movies and TV shows. You have to turn on the subtitles to get an idea of what they're talking about.
J'ai appris plein de trucs grâce à ça.
French people don't seem to care about grammar either. They speak so fast that they have to skip some syllables, whole words sometimes. It feels like a different language from what you learned in your textbook, years, decades, sometimes half a century ago. Well, unfortunately, you're right. It is a different language. It is spoken French, the one that we use in everyday life. For instance, ben, c'est pas que je veux pas, mais je peux pas t'aider là. That's not what you would find in a grammar textbook. In less informal French, we could write je n'y suis pas opposé, mais je ne peux pas t'aider pour le moment. That's correct French, That's written French, the kind of sentence you would find in a novel, sometimes, old novels, but not in real conversations at all. But when you learn French with written lessons, well, you only learn the rules of written French. Of course, these rules are important, and I really mean it. They are important, but they're not your end goal. Instead, everything you learn should be used to communicate. That's how you learn. That's how you really practice French. And that's how you can have fun with the language. So, before you lose your sanity over the subjunctive conjugation of prendre, you might want to get a feel for the basic patterns of spoken French first. Let me tell you something. The main challenge when learning French is not knowing your exact level and what you should be practicing next. Without a clear structure, you will certainly think that learning French is not difficult, but impossible. That's why I created the weekly practice plan. With this free resource, you will get a clear assessment of your current level and specific exercises tailored to your needs. You will find exactly what you practice each day of the week, how to overcome common obstacles, and a simple method to track your improvement. Join over 30,000 French learners who have already downloaded this free resource. Click the link in the description below and start your structured French practice today. Okay, let's continue.
Moi, je pense que c'est la base absolue.
Let's take a look at this sentence. Eh bien, ce n'est pas que je ne veux pas, mais je ne peux pas l'aider maintenant. That's not a formal sentence, but it is squarely in the written French camp. Let's see exactly how I turned it into spoken French. It starts with eh bien. It means oh well, eh bien. It's a filler word, but it's the written French version of it. In real conversation, we would probably shorten it to ben. Ben, ben. Similarly, maintenant is too long for our taste, so we would use the shortest alternative, which is la, la. It becomes a bit of a filler word as well. Filler words are very common in spoken French, especially or quoi, but also things like alors or du coup. Now we have ben, c'est pas que je ne veux pas, mais je ne peux pas l'aider là. Okay? Ben, ce n'est pas que je ne veux pas, mais je ne peux pas l'aider là. It is still too formal for a conversation, okay? Mostly we would cut the ne in negations. That's not something we would do in a French exam, okay? So please don't use them for your written French exam. Don't. But in real spoken French, we would absolutely prefer ben, c'est pas que je veux pas, mais je peux pas l'aider là. Okay, we cut the ne. Ben, c'est pas que je veux pas, mais je peux pas l'aider là. Okay, that's better. But all these sound slow us down too much. When speaking, they don't roll off the tongue properly. So let's get rid of them. Ben, c'est pas que je veux pas, mais je peux pas l'aider là. Okay? Ben, c'est pas que je veux pas, mais je peux pas l'aider là. Now, that's real spoken French, but we wouldn't write it this way, okay? So listen again and really feel what we've done. Eh bien, ce n'est pas que je ne veux pas, mais je ne peux pas l'aider maintenant. Ben, c'est pas que je veux pas, mais je peux pas l'aider là. Ben, c'est pas que je veux pas, mais je peux pas l'aider là. Can you feel the difference? As you explore more and more spoken French, you will find more recurring patterns, of course, like simplified questions, asking tu veux quoi instead of the very formal que veux-tu, or informal vocabulary like saying un truc for quelque chose, which means something, bosser for travailler, to work, or un pote instead of un ami for a friend.
Toi, mon pote, t'es un pote.
Okay, that was a bit of a detour. These are just tips I give you so that you can better understand what the other person says in a French conversation. Again, the rules are not the important part. In fact,
C'est la clé du film.
You can already communicate, and that's the good news. You don't need perfection to communicate. You don't need to master the gender of all the nouns in French or the details of les verbes pronominaux. Basic French is enough to express your ideas at first, and I'm going to give you the key to expand it quickly. If you wait until you know everything, you will never get to use the language, and it will be imperfect anyway. So from now on, you're free to make mistakes, you're free to simplify, and as we've seen, native speakers do that all the time. Yes, there are some new rules to spoken French, but don't stress, you will figure them out as you go. You only need a mindset shift. You already know enough of correct written French, the ones for exams and official emails. Now you need to wire in the real spoken French for friends, movies, small talk, and friendships. You need to start using or listening to real spoken French right now. In order to speak it more and more, there is a key. It's simple, but you could think about it in different ways. For instance, here is the key. Use the forms you actually hear. That's how you can notice, for instance, that French people say je sais pas instead of je ne sais pas for I don't know, je sais pas. Or j'ai pas le temps instead of je n'ai pas le temps for I don't have the time, j'ai pas le temps, j'ai pas le temps. We cut the ne and the weak e. You might even find colloquial expressions like t'inquiète for ne t'inquiète pas, don't worry about it, t'inquiète, t'inquiète.
Ça va aller, t'inquiète.
By repeating what you hear and using it again with your own voice, you will become much more comfortable than if you learned it passively. Your mouth learns faster than your brain. If you're afraid to feel lost, you can keep these simple sentences in your back pocket. Tu peux répéter s'il te plaît? Can you repeat please? If they speak a bit too fast, tu peux répéter s'il te plaît? Attends. Wait, this is helpful to buy time when you're looking for a word. Ça me va or pas de souci. Okay for me. Ça me va or pas de souci. When in doubt, be positive. I gave you some examples of spoken French patterns, but that was a very quick leg up. The key is to listen to how French people actually speak. And by the way, that's how you learn your own language. You didn't learn it in a textbook. In other words, the key is to pay attention to what they say and how they say it. Even in movies, the character rarely say exactly what the subtitle says. You'll find filler words and more, like the way they ask questions like saying, Tu viens ce soir? Are you coming tonight? Tu viens ce soir? Instead of the correct French, Est-ce que tu viens ce soir? Or even Viens-tu ce soir? That's why it's important to learn real-life chunks of words instead of just a list of isolated vocabulary.
Tu viens ce soir, j'ai 2 places.
Because another way to explain the key would be to embrace the music. Why do we get some E and not others? Well, it's not about the rules, it's about the rhythm of the language, the flow of the conversation. Sometimes you might take the time to say, Comment vas-tu? With the correct grammar. And sometimes you can feel more cheerful with the ça roule. And of course, we swallow some vowels and we cut some words as we need. You will get a feel for it as you keep using the spoken French that you hear, playing its music yourself. It sounds so simple, but I understand that it can be intimidating. That's why another version of the same key, another angle, another look at it, is to play pretend. It's a trick, but it's a good one. When you play, you stop getting in your own way. You stop caring about grammar mistakes and what's the right rule here, what's the right gender of the word, but you use what you know to sound like a French person. You don't claim to be a great speaker, but you have simple fun by reusing the chunks and the music of French sentences that you've heard. You will feel allowed to say things like Tu peux me filer un coup de main s'il te plaît?
Tu me fais un coup de main, s'il te plaît, parce que là, je suis en business et puis il y a de la chou, reprends mes affaires.
So no, you don't have to earn the right to speak by passing a test on the passé composé agreement table. French language is too difficult for that. You speak now, you make mistakes, and you refine it as you go by following how other French speakers say it. And that's how French is actually spoken. Dites-moi, qu'est-ce que vous trouvez le plus difficile en français? Don't forget to download your free personalized weekly action plan, a step-by-step roadmap with daily activities tailored for your level, progress tracking tools, and proven strategy to overcome common French challenges. Now, if you're translating French in your head, I'm sure this video will bring a lot of clarity in your learning journey. À bientôt.